For everyone who's joining us right now, thanks. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. We're waiting for another panelist to join us and let everyone get into the webinar. Our Facebook live feed right now is not operational, so we're having a little trouble with Zoom getting that up. So if you know anyone that was planning to watch on Facebook, please direct them to the webinar itself and we can get them on here. We'll get started in 2 minutes.
Christina, your son photobombed the video.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It has to be. Go to your math homework. Trying to keep the schedule and the calmness has been challenging.
Definitely.
Same here. Jack, no, that seriously, you're gonna get in trouble.
So again, if you're just joining us, we're going to get started in just 1 more minute. And this is again our webinar this morning on the hospitality industry, including restaurants, talking about some of the specific issues there. And we'll get started in 1 minute. Thanks. All right, so we'll get kicked off. Good morning, everyone. My name is Garrett Sheehan. I'm President and CEO of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. We're extremely pleased to have you this morning for this webinar, Navigating the Coronavirus Threat in Restaurant, Hospitality, and Retail Industries. As a starting point, we obviously know the devastating impact that the virus and the fallout from it has had on these specific industries, definitely across all businesses, but so much so on our restaurants, hotels, our local retailers. It really has, I don't have to tell you, I know many of you who are here listening to us today can describe for yourself what it's meant for your business. So we wanted to put together this forum that is specifically geared to these industries. Let me introduce our panelists today. We have Christina Fitzgerald with the Union League Cafe. We also have David Del Vecchio with Yale Properties. In a little while, we'll be joined by Scott Dolch with Connecticut Restaurant Association, and we'll have Joe Williams with the Connecticut Small Business Development Center jumping in just a few minutes. Let me start off with Christina and Dave, and I'll let them talk a little bit about, first with Christina, what she's facing with Union League Cafe and some of the things that they've done so far to address it, and any other topic, Christina, you want to get us started off with. Good morning.
Good morning, thank you. This has clearly been extremely hard for the Union League Cafe family, New Haven County, all the restaurants in general. We had to close down from the start point, which was the 16th. Unfortunately, we were unable to do takeout in what, in our capacity of a restaurant. So initially we put together packets for all of our employees with their employee number, their start date, tried to get them organized with the unemployment process. Also keeping in touch with them on a weekly basis on, when the utilities started to say that they would defer their payments, just reached out to them to stay connected with our Union League family, just to say, call your utility company, see if you could, not pay, make sure you get in touch with your landlord, putting together a letter for them of hardship, for rent purposes. So kind of keeping, our family informed. It's been quite difficult for all of us to navigate through all of the government processes of loans, who is eligible, what does that mean? You have an end date to fill it out. It's a lot of information moving fast, but keeping together with all of these types of webinars has made my life feel more connected. Being in isolation at home, with kids, working, still trying to go on a healthy everyday life with this added stress. These webinars are fantastic.
Great. Thank you, Christina. Dave, with Yale Properties, you have several restaurants, many retailers who are all looking to you. Talk to us a little bit about what Yale Properties is seeing. So many of the businesses that you have are the vibrancy of New Haven.
Yeah, so, well, right away, we gave our tenants 2 months of rent relief just to help them get through the beginning of this crisis. I know there are some loan packages now that help with rent, but right from the onset, we wanted to make sure that businesses weren't stressed and that they, would be able to hopefully reopen soon when this is over. We're seeing, obviously all the retailers are trying to get their online sales going with their online shopping. And restaurants, as of today, we have 21 restaurants that are remaining open for takeout and delivery. So a lot of our attention now is supporting them and creating awareness for those restaurants to help them try to get through this. And they are doing okay. I mean, they've reduced hours, so they're operating more efficiently now. But orders are coming in, thankfully, from the delivery services. There's some pickup, but a lot is coming in through Uber Eats and DoorDash and all the delivery services. So we're happy in that respect.
And let's join now with Scott, who I see we've got online. Scott with Connecticut Restaurant Association. So Scott, thanks for joining us. And before
thanks,
Scott
Garrett.
starts talking, let me just let everyone know if we want this to be an interactive forum. So if you have questions, you can put them into the chat, and I'll ask all of our panelists the questions as they come up. So please, as you have things that pop up, or if you have questions right now, you can start populating those into the chat section, and we'll get to those. Scott, thanks for joining us. I know you've been doing a lot on the advocacy front for the restaurants across the entire state.
Thanks, Garrett. No, I apologize. I'm being a little bit late, having some technical difficulties here in the house and the 2-year-old running around. But no, I appreciate having an opportunity here to be on the call and kind of give you guys an update on a state and federal level for on the restaurant industry.
Great. What are some of the, Scott, I'll start with you. What are some of the big topics that you're working on with the governor's office and maybe even with the legislature right now?
Sure. I mean, it started since obviously March 16th, which was kind of D-Day for our restaurants with the on-premise dining being shut down. And kind of since that point, even a little before that point, we've just been trying to update the governor as much as we can on the support that our restaurants need. We understand that and I know our restaurateurs and some of them here on the call, Christina here, and they understand that it is a health crisis. We're trying to do everything and do our part. But at the same time, that we are the lifeblood of this community and in the state, 8,500 restaurants total, 160,000 food service employees. So a lot of the conversations has really started there with the governor to say, hey, we want to work together. But at the same time, these small businesses are in a dire situation right now of, with their sales. I know, listening to Don a little bit talk about, the takeout piece, but, realistically, takeout from a majority and average restaurant is about 10% prior to this. Maybe they can get it up to 15 or 20. But obviously when you don't have on-premise dining in your full service restaurant, you're really hemorrhaging right now and you're trying to figure out the support that you need. So we've been working. Obviously, we're supportive with the governor. Obviously, launched the bridge loans last week, and I know we had record numbers of applications, especially from our restaurateurs, asking for those loans. I know they've increased that loan process from 25 to 50. We're still putting pressure on the DECD to probably put some more in there, allowing for more people to apply and to support more restaurants specifically. We also got wind late last night that the governor is deferring sales tax for small businesses across the state. Obviously, there's a threshold of $150,000 in your annual tax in 2019. It's going to definitely help a lot of the restaurants, but at the same time, in my opinion, we need to help all of them. They were, really the first businesses to ask to close. And for any restaurateurs here listening on the call, that's really my voice and my impact to say, hey, these are a couple great first steps, but there needs to be a lot more steps following it. to make sure that these restaurants can either stay open right now in the short term, but when we get out of this crisis, is realistically trying to make sure that they can get back on their feet. They can rehire. I think there's a record number. I think I saw it last night, 130,000 folks have filed for unemployment. It's no coincidence that the majority of that is the hospitality industry. And we want to have jobs for them when we get through this. And that's my concern right now, and my efforts to the governor's office to say, what else can they do to support?
Thanks. Let's dive into the takeout situation a little bit more, and everyone can jump in here. Scott, as you just mentioned, that is a small drop in the bucket for what a lot of these restaurants have been doing. Christina mentioned even their restaurant, that's just not something that they're set up to do. How long can we go on with takeout? Are some restaurants thriving in it? What are you seeing across the board? And again, I'll open this to all three of our panelists if each want to comment.
Well, with the sales tax situation, restaurants that are in that tax bracket are economic drivers in the industry. So, it's just unfortunate that those big chains, those big restaurants are not part of the group of getting a break on this at the current time. But with the to-goes, I just don't know how long. Of course, I want it to last, but my concern is when are this employees not going to feel comfortable enough to go there? I feel like that's just going to be the next step, which is crushing, because they're trying to survive, trying to make ends meet, and I just don't know when that is going to come up next. I feel would be the next step, and we should brace ourselves for it.
And Christina, you guys are obviously a fine dining. A lot of it is the experience. Did you have any thought about trying to do takeout, or was that just something was not at all possible with the type of restaurant you are?
For not so much, it's of the type. We don't do many to-goes on a normal basis. The packaging that we have for to-go is really not set up for long kind of travel, our portions. It just doesn't work, along with the location of where we are in Chapel Street, which is absolutely beautiful, but the pull out, there's no parking lot. That was, it was just, we felt there was going to be a lot of issues with getting it. But we are, we have sat down with Market New Haven, and we are starting a plan that hopefully 30 restaurants in the greater New Haven County will donate one meal for 50 people for up to a minimum of 50 people to the hospital, so that we could fill the whole month of April to the frontliners. So hopefully, the New Haven Restaurant Committee will jump on that, and just a little bit of donation. Also, let the chefs use their crafts. The 50 people too can be done with 2 people or one person at that as well. Pack it up. So that's how we're trying to reach out to the community and do something good.
Dave, what are you seeing across the board on the restaurants that have space with you? Are many of them doing takeout? What types of practices have you seen?
So we are seeing quite a few doing takeout, but with reduced staff in the restaurants that I've talked to and I've met with, and they are basically the owner and maybe a manager. It's really reduced, and they're, I think, just maybe trying to keep the doors open for as long as they can, keep inventory coming in and going out. It's not by any means a full staff situation where they're employing 20 people. It's mostly 2-3 people.
And Scott, Christina touched on this a little bit, the safety of the employees. I know consumers have questions, although, from what I've seen, I know a lot of people are trying to make an effort to get some takeout throughout the week to support, but are there best practices out there for restaurants to follow to keep both their employees and their customers safe? And what are you seeing restaurants do?
No, it's a great question, Garrett. I think, most restaurants, or all restaurants, I guess, across the country, but especially in Connecticut, they pride themselves on the sanitation practices and the proper procedures that they have to go through. And to be honest, we've actually, as an association, tried to step that up since the beginning of this crisis of, talking about, hey, listen, we have through the CDC. There's nothing that's come out that's a foodborne illness, but obviously there's other challenges for safety of customers coming through. And we've tried to provide them initial guidelines, and the guidelines have gotten stronger. We continue to educate. We actually just launched a couple days ago, Serve Safe, which is our kind of food training program on a national level. Just added 2 new training videos that are free for all of our restaurants, which is a takeout and a delivery, giving you more proper protocol of how you should be handling it and staying safe. And I think, I'll be honest with you, I think our restaurants are some of the safest places to go get food because, it's less touch points. You're not, nothing against some of the other areas you have to go, and grocery stores are waiting in line and that social distancing. I see our restaurants, going above and beyond. I mean, I was just at a restaurant the other day that had, they were using tongs, so you weren't even connecting with the people giving you the food, and the curbside piece has really become very popular if you can offer that with your location.
That's J. Timothy's in Plainville, right?
Yeah, I was at J. Timothy's, the Grabbers. But again, yeah, I think to Christina's point, it is a concern. They are I was just talking with the governor's office yesterday. They are on the front lines. Our food service employees are trying to provide that service. I mean, people do need the food. They need to eat. I mean, 51% of the U.S. food dollar comes through restaurants. So, to sit there and not have them as an opportunity for takeout and delivery, I think would really hurt these communities. But at the same time, you understand that it isn't the skeleton crews and the other debt that's being built up, is that concern for these restaurants that they're not doing this, in a way to make money. They're doing it to keep a couple people on staff and to really provide that service to their community. But there's going to need so much more as we continue to try to go through this crisis, but then trying to get out of it, of having people try to reopen their doors and having the support that they need, financially to get, is my concern as we continue to move forward, because, and Christina couldn't be more right on the concerns with the employees and everything else, that we're trying to do everything we can as an association to educate and provide guidelines, provide the guidance that's needed to keep people safe. But when people don't feel well, they don't feel right. I also know restaurants that are telling us, like, listen, if it doesn't work for you, or you're worried about it, we understand. And that's why you're seeing, to David's point, a lot of owners and maybe 1 or 2 managers or maybe 1 cook are the only people that are working. The owners are the ones that are grinding this out right now. I had one tell me last night they're working 80 hours a week, more than they've ever worked in their life. They're scared to death on what they can pay for, what they can do, but they're doing everything they can to help the community. But also they are worried about their own health and safety. But they're the ones that are really on the front lines, and I give them so much credit for the efforts that they're putting in.
We're going to get to retail in a minute. I want to talk a little bit about retail, but before I do that, I know we did have a big push around gift cards for restaurants. Has that worked out well? Have we seen positive results? Anyone want to jump in on that?
I'll try to answer it from a bigger picture. I think there's definitely, the restaurants are using gift cards and creating possibly their own fund and trying to support their staff individually. We haven't gone with a blanket gift card program as a state, just because I think there's we don't want to steal some of the ideas these restaurants are doing and how it's working for them in different pockets of the state. Down in New Haven, I know there's some restaurants that are doing that for their employees. But the other piece to this too is, to Christina's point, looking at the frontline workers and trying to feed them. But we actually, hopefully later today, as an association, we're launching a hospitality employee relief fund. We're going to try to raise funds across the state and provide hardship grants to hospitality employees that are Connecticut based, and an application process. And I just talked to 2 breweries, Armada and Bad Sons, obviously no one is in the New Haven area, that they're going to donate. They're actually making beer right now that they hope to have brewed in 2 weeks, and all the proceeds are going to go to the fund. I've had a couple other breweries reach out to us, restaurants that are trying to get involved, but we're trying to do our part as an association to give back to these employees and try to help the ones that are in most need.
Anyone else have a comment on gift cards, Christina or Dave?
We've had certainly some gift card purchases. Absolutely. We have, sending communication out to our email base just to let them know, clearly we miss them. We've had some really amazing notes, heartfelt notes back, and emails sent to us at Union League. So, the gift cards are certainly helping right now. The monthly expenses go through, and we look forward to seeing them all come in when we open the doors again.
All right, thanks.
That's something we jumped on that right as soon as we could, promoting buying gift cards to help support retailers and restaurants. And I know even those that didn't have online capabilities to sell the gift cards, people were just calling the store, they were putting in orders, and the store owners were mailing them out. So I know it's been helping. Certainly not the same as a regular day or week, but at least it's generating some income.
Dave, I want to stick with you on the retail side. I know the retailers have been forced to close their doors based on the state mandates and orders. There is the opportunity, I understand, for them to have online sales and then pick up at the store location. I don't know if you've seen any of your retailers do that, but what are you hearing from retailers overall?
We're hearing that obviously it's slowed down quite a bit, and they are focusing all their efforts on online sales, trying to ship things out rather than doing in-store pickups or curbside pickups. But business has dropped off dramatically, and we're doing our best through email programs and Facebook, social media campaigns to help promote them. And they're doing as much as they can too.
Is there a big difference between, I know you have both the large national retailers and then also some smaller homegrown local retailers in your portfolio. Any differences that you're seeing in approaches?
Well, the online, the nationals do have more sophisticated marketing programs to promote online. And they do that year round. This is nothing new to them. They have big databases. They have big followings on social media. So our focus has been on the independently owned retailers more so than the nationals. We do list both on our website, but we've been trying to push our independently owned merchants like Sneaker Junkies, Rags, Idiom, Dwell, Derek Simpson, and they need the support the most.
We're getting Joe on the line, so we definitely want to talk about the federal stimulus package that's out there. I know we have a lot of questions about that. I do want to take a moment just to talk about Together New Haven. That's an initiative that's being put together by lots of groups within the city. And so I should mention them all. Town Green, I know, has been extremely helpful in trying to push, come downtown, not to get into groups, but to utilize our restaurants, pick up from our retailers, also Market New Haven, the Connecticut Lodging Association. We haven't spent much time talking about the hotels, but I can just say that I know a lot of our hotels are working with first responders and how that they can provide housing as well as homeless populations to get them into hotel rooms, which, again, keeps the lights on for the hotels and provides a necessary and needed benefit for our region as well. And I also want to recognize Rhett and Market New Haven for all the work that they've been doing. As we continue to talk through this, we should mention all of the programs that are coming down the pike from the federal stimulus program. We'll have Joe on in just a moment to talk us through some of these. But these have been very effective, at least what we're starting to see. There's a lot of information that still needs to be out there that we're looking to get guidance on. We're hoping to have an application process available soon. Let me start off with a big question on that. I think the challenge so many businesses face right now, especially in this industry, is, okay, I can get a loan, maybe I can get some grants, but where am I going to, since we have so much uncertainty on what's going to happen next, how people are going to act? Do they want to go out to eat in the summer months? Are they going to be ready to go out to eat, to go to stores in the fall? With us not knowing really what's going to happen with this virus and what's going to happen with the government mandates. So I know there's no answer there, but I'll throw that out to the panel and just to get your thoughts on what you're hearing and what kind of advice you're able to provide right now.
I guess, Garrett, I'll take a quick stab at that. I mean, you couldn't be more right. I think, we definitely appreciate where the federal government is going with the stimulus package, but how it's going to affect small business, or how, especially in our world with restaurants, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. I know the EIDL loans, the economic injury disaster loans, have been open for 2 weeks. And there's some more details into that. I think the stimulus added a $10,000 grant program into that application process that we're still trying to learn, and help provide to our members and other restaurants as well. But also this PPP loan process. Obviously, we're still waiting for so many guidelines, but then even seeing what we know, it is a worry, because I think, as you guys know, here in Connecticut, we are continuing to see these rates of increases of we are in kind of an epicenter right next to New York City. When can we reopen, and how that's going to affect these small businesses, not only in the short term, but like I mentioned it before, but whenever we do get through this and start opening, I can promise you, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have like a day like, hey, we're back open, everyone's back 100%, and these restaurants are going to be generating the revenue they were seeing in February. It's going to be a slow movement, and they're going to need that other support besides just the stimulus. And it's the conversation I'm having with National of, hey, this is great. It's another great step with the CARES Act. But there definitely needs to be something rolled out. What's phase 4 of these bills? What's Congress talking about? And then also with the state, because I do worry about all the small businesses, not just restaurants, getting back on their feet, getting that slow rollout, and being able to stay open and bring back their employees in a full way, everyone back and being employed. So that'd be my take. And obviously no one really has the answers yet, just trying to get them fast and furious.
Dave, let me let you wrap up, because I know you have to run off to another meeting. Just a comment and any other takeaways you want people to have.
So I think with the loan programs that are coming out, that it seems they seem like they still have a little bit of work to do to finalize the details. But I think it's important to reach out to your banks now, and I'm sure Joe will weigh in on that. It's important to reach out to your accountants and get your paperwork in order, to talk to your loan officer at the bank, get any paperwork started that you can get started. The initial rollout will have, we heard that yesterday on your webinar, limited funds for the first round. There should be more funds brought in later, but there will be limited funds. So those who apply first will have a better chance of getting some assistance. So I think it's about maybe starting to reach out now to your financial advisors and get ready. I would think that's a big takeaway. And we are promoting all New Haven restaurants through a Dine Home NHV campaign. So if you hashtag Dine Home NHV, that's for everyone to get involved. For people can follow that hashtag and see all the restaurants that are open. Visit New Haven and Info New Haven have been doing a great job of listing all New Haven restaurants that are open, and keeping up with with the changing hours and delivery services. And I think everybody's pitching in, and it's great to see all this teamwork.
Great. Thanks, Dave. I know you have to run to another meeting, but appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, David. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
I'm going to bring in Joe Williams in just a moment. I do want to mention to everyone too, we're talking a lot about New Haven here, but this is a regional, statewide, obviously national issue, global issue as well. And so we have a lot of restaurants in our entire region that we want to support. I know we have other local chambers that are on the line today, and you can go to those city websites, local chamber websites to find out about restaurants. If it's in Milford or one of our other towns, we're talking a lot about New Haven, but I just want to keep perspective on the region as well, because we're here to support all of those restaurants. Let me bring in Joe now. Joe is with the Connecticut Small Business Development Center, a cousin of the SBA, and organization that you can work through to try to get these applications in. Joe, we did a webinar with you yesterday about the federal stimulus package. I think the biggest thing we know right now is you cannot apply yet for that new round of stimulus that has come out, a lot of that around the payroll protection program. But there are other SBA loans that are available, including some of that turns into a grant. And we are expecting the third stimulus package, the application process, to get underway in the next day or so. So Joe, why don't you tell us what you know right now?
Good morning. Thanks, Garrett. That is true. The PPP program, or the Payroll Protection Program, right now, we're still trying to get word out of Washington. I do have a seminar, a webinar later today. Hopefully we'll get further clarification. As you know, the bill or the act now is over 800 pages. So we're trying to, over the weekend, decipher all that information. And the SBA has not yet put out how they're going to put the portal up and who's going to run it. So they're working on that as we speak. But going to the EIDL, which has been out for 2 weeks, there has been a change as of yesterday. If you have applied up until this weekend for the EIDL portion, which is the emergency assistance portion, that you are going to have to reapply to the new website that the SBA has right now. If you want to participate in the $10,000 advance grant, which is the grant portion of that, you have to apply. They're not going to go back to what you did a week or two ago. You have to put in a whole new application because it's dealing with the grant portion. What that will signify and do, whether you're denied, whether you're accepted, if you already have an acceptance, in order to actually receive a portion of that $10,000 grant, which is forgivable, whether you receive it or not, you can, if you get denied your EIDL, you get to keep the $10,000. It will be in a form of a grant, all right? But you need to apply. That's one thing I got from 7 o'clock correspondence this morning out of Washington. So just hopefully stay tuned with that. Please apply. We're encouraging everyone to apply. We know that there's $370 billion in that particular fund. We think from Senator Murphy yesterday, they'll probably add some more later on as this thing spreads into the Midwestern states, such as Texas and Arizona and Florida. There may be more allocations, but right now, what they try to do is to put a few things to address the American population as well as small businesses to actually help us out in the next 2 or 3 weeks. They will convene the fourth legislation, or fourth part of this. Senator Murphy did speak about that yesterday. They are going to work on that, and we do know that. So what we have today, if you were to go to the SBA.gov disaster website, you will actually see the 4 different programs that a business can apply for. One thing, talking about the express portion of the emergency loan, this is where we're encouraging to go contact your local bank to see if most of them are preferred lenders of the SBA, and we want to know that they're participating in the program. I just got word off a phone with a client. Wells Fargo is not going to participate in that program right now. So if anyone on the phone is a Wells Fargo customer, I think you should find out why they're not participating. But there was conversations last week and correspondence and some edicts from the FDIC encouraging those banks to participate with the SBA Express program. So what we have here in the state of Connecticut, one is the EIDL program. That's the first and foremost. Every single small business should apply, whether you think you should apply, whether you're a startup business or not, you know, a new restaurant, you are trying to get you up off the ground, or you've been in business 50 years, you should apply for that. It'll automatically trigger you in after a few days. I think they said 3 days, that you will be eligible for the $10,000 grant. The payroll portion, though, the PPP, you have to give the feds another day or so. We do not have word on how you should apply for that yet. We knew that as far as yesterday, they said we will not have the information before this afternoon or Wednesday at the earliest of how the PPP portion of the stimulus is going to work. So just be patient with that. We might have to, Garrett, have another webinar as soon as that information comes out, and we will get that out to you. As far as the state of Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development is concerned, you know, there was $25 million originally that the governor and commissioner put out. We've now extended that to $50 million. There's over 4,000 applications in that, and they're not taking any more applications through the state program because they're oversubscribed at the state level. So you'd had to go in there in like 2 days, really, as soon as they made the announcement. So what I would do at ctsbdc.com, so it's the Connecticut Small Business Development Center.com. We do have a resource center. You will see some videos. We'll give you some instruction on how to fill out your application. Last week's application, the last 2 weeks, it was very cumbersome, and it was basically it was crashing basically. So what the SBA has done is revamped everything, come up with a whole new website and directions. It's very simple. It takes some people a matter of minutes to do. Before it took you a couple hours to get it done. Now it's a matter of minutes. They will follow up. They'll send you an email to say they accepted your application. Within a few days from there, usually 48 hours, they'll send you a correspondence saying it's in review. If you are going to be denied, you will get a phone call from SBA with a letter. All right. Those are usually the first people that are contacted within the first few days of the actual application. If you do not hear from the government in a week, but they sent you and said they've accepted your application and it's in review, that is a good sign for you. So do not panic. It is just, there's an onslaught of applications being processed right now. So of the grant portion, once they get that acceptance from there, what you will actually have is you will get notification about the grant portion of the $10,000. So just be aware of that. We are here to help you. There are a number of resources from the SCORE office, my office, the Women's Center as well. We are the consultants on behalf of the SBA. We're SBA partners. We're here to help walk you through the process, answer any questions you may have. I just want you to know that you are not alone. The president, our governor, and our elected officials are quite aware of the tremendous problems that we're facing right now. We're trying to do everything in our power to ease some of the pain and anxiety that we know that most businesses face. Most people I speak to, is more anxiety than anything else. But there are definitely programs. People who have questions dealing with payroll, of what do we do about their employees? Should they furlough their employees versus laying them off? We are discouraging you from really laying off your employees, but you must do what we call a financial audit of your situation, seeing what is best for you and your firm. Can you actually afford to keep your employees, or is it best to allow your employees to actually collect unemployment? It may be a better option. As you know, in the stimulus, there is a $600 a week provision for employees that are being laid off in this country and for 4 months. One significant thing about our loan programs that are being offered is the deferment of these. These are not immediate payments. These are being deferred minimally of 4 months, somewhere up to 12 months, depending on which program you actually choose or you actually get accepted in. So just be aware, you should stay close to the SBA website. This is where most information is actually going. It's like the clearinghouse on the particular website. We that are internal, we do get internal memos, and as we get those and we're allowed to send that out to the public, we have been and we will continue to do so. So Garrett, we'll definitely keep you in the loop on everyone on this call. But
Joe, a couple of questions for you. Continue there. You know, I've had some questions on the, well, first we should make clear, as you said, there's 2 programs here, but they don't exclude you from doing one. So if you do the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan, that's not going to keep you from doing the Paycheck Protection Program, Payroll Protection Program. You know, they may meld together at some point. You don't get to kind of double dip, but you can still apply for both. On the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, though, can someone just apply for the 10,000? You know, let's say they don't want to take on a loan. Can they only apply for that 10,000 that becomes a grant?
They must apply in full to the EIDL. If they're denied, they will keep the 10,000 as a grant. But the government wants you to apply to the loan. That is a trigger point within the system of the legislation that was actually written, that you must apply for the loan, whether you get to receive it or you're denied, then the $10,000 advance will actually kick in, because it is an advancement of the loan. That's why it's important that you must apply to the loan. You just cannot apply and say, I want the grant. If you've gone into the web page, I think on page 3, this is where you request the advancement, which is a part of that. There's no other place to ask for the advancement without going through the application process. And
if you do get the loan, you still, though, have that $10,000 that's not going to have to be paid back?
It's forgivable.
Okay, correct. That's good to know. You know, let me turn to the other panelists now and just kind of see, you know, we just heard Joe talk about that. Any particular questions or comments, Scott or Christina, that you want to add? You know, again, I hate to put in these cold terms, but a lot of times this really is a math problem, and it's looking at your business and trying to identify, and here really you have to play out a couple of scenarios. You have to play out a scenario that things get better in the summer, maybe a scenario things get better in the fall, and maybe another kind of worst case scenario, and then do the math for your own particular business to see what makes sense if you should take these programs. If I hear Joe correctly, and I know I heard this from our panelists yesterday, you know, you definitely want to be on top of these programs, but they may not all work for you. And so you want to be very careful about what you jump into. Christina, maybe I'll turn to you first, and then Scott for your comments.
Joe, so in light of everything, we should just keep reaching out to all of these loans and see what we get. At the end of the day, you don't have to move forward with one that's not going to work for your, you know, future business plan. Is that the direct line of communication I should remember from today?
Yeah,
I think that's
you really should. I mean, every business is the same. What we're trying to do as a business advisors is actually strategically look at your financials, look at your historical before this event happened. Where were you as a business, number one? And then number two, how has this COVID-19 affected your business? And then looking forward over the next 90 to 4 months, and this is what the estimate coming out of Washington, they want us to really evaluate, what do you really need to sustain not only your business, but possibly keeping your employees as employees? That's really what the actual goal of this stimulus number 3 and number 2 we're trying to actually do it.
Right. We just want to make sure there's a business to come back to.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I think that what we don't want to do is to put a business in a situation where you put yourself in too much debt. This is why in the original application, you didn't request how much you were getting. The underwriters were making a determination based solely on your financial conditions, the interim financial statements that you're putting together, past performance of what you put into the IRS. That's what we're looking at. What you see in the new application is actually a little bit more difficult questions. It's really having you have more input and giving the underwriter a little bit more guidance of, hey, is this a sound practice? Should this company go into this indebtedness at the level that they're requesting? Or should we have another conversation? And talking to some of my clients yesterday that have been assigned their underwriting officer, you will get assigned a person that will actually go over that with you. So that's something good. I just found that out yesterday. This person's applied about a week and a half ago, and they've just got notice as of yesterday that they do have an underwriter with a real name and phone number assigned to them, which is a good thing. So the government is still trying to keep up with their 21 days of the EIDL, and that's something that we're really trying to push for. That is a 3-week process, and this is how in the last legislation of the act, the advancement, which is that 3-day to 5-day type of window, they're trying to say, hey, let's at least get $10,000 out there, and have it in a grant format. And that came about last week in session of Congress, where Senator Murphy spoke about this, and I know I spoke to Senator Blumenthal last week when they're looking at this. They spoke about, hey, what are we going to do for those small businesses and those restaurants that are on the bubble of weathering? Should we lay off our employees or should we keep them? They said if we give them a loan, we're just causing a debt and a problem. By putting in the form of a grant, it at least gives you some time to fully evaluate your situation as an individual company.
Right. Would you recommend seeking professional help, businesses to hire someone like your company, yourself, in a, you know, just because what they're asking for and each loan is different, just the amount of work? I mean, because why are people getting denied? Is it just a matter of they filled that section out incorrectly? Or, you know, you feel that they should be reaching out to companies to help them go through this process? What would you recommend?
I recommend that you seek out as many professional help as possible. The Women's Center, SCORE, my department, SBDC, we are your free consultants on behalf of the government. Your tax dollar pays my salary every single day. We are professionals in our own right. Most of our PhDs and MBAs. We've owned our own companies, and we still own our company. So we are the front line to this. So for those that cannot afford it, well, we are a good resource for you to actually have. That doesn't mean you should not reach out to your accountant or an attorney, especially those who specialize in some of the things dealing with your payroll or Department of Labor issues. Especially those companies, a lot of questions we've been having, especially yesterday, was dealing with the FMLA, the sick leave of even businesses less than 50 employees. What do they do, and how is that going to affect them? We're actually just looking at portions of the act, and there's individuals that specialize in that. I do believe this gentleman yesterday from Shipman and Goodman was on the call talking about what their firm actually does with that. So we are asking you, if you do have those resources, do use them. But don't hesitate to go to my website though and ask for an advisor to be assigned to, because we work with SBA participating lenders all the time. So we know the criteria. Most applications are being denied because of credit, not that they filled out something wrong. If your file is incomplete, the government will tell you that it's incomplete. If you even get a denial letter, they're sending you a letter telling you denied. But most denials last week happen to do with the threshold of credit. This is still a 7A 504, which are the federal guaranteed programs of the federal government. Think of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. In order to get a loan, you need a 620 FICO score. So if you're a small business owner, you do not have a 620 FICO score, you are still in that micro lending world. It does not mean that the government is going to turn you down because you don't meet that certain threshold. What they're saying, they want everyone to apply because we use what we call universal global credit. So only credit is a small part of it, which they're using as a gauge because there's limited amount of dollars right now. But at the same time, yes, sir.
We got a question on closing costs. Are those going to be deferred?
Good question. On the EIDL, there is no closing cost. Some of the other programs of the standard 7A, that express program, there is some fees associated with that, much like other SBA fund loan programs. What you need to understand is the best program to apply for right now would be the EIDL program. Secondly, once we find a little bit more about the PPP, which is the payroll protection program, I think that will be secondary. If you needed some money like in the next week or two, you might want to talk to your institution and say, hey, what's going on with these express loans that are out here right now? And that's what I would actually gauge it like that, where you are in your business. Most restaurants who are on this call are still doing some sort of takeout. They have limited amount of resources. They may have furloughed or laid off some of their employees. And questions that we're trying to get an answer to is, if I laid off my employee in the last 2 weeks or whatever, in the PPP, it talks about in 8 weeks of extending out your payroll. Well, I've come into situations, we have some calls into SBA to answer the question, if I furloughed or I laid off some of my employees and I want to bring them back, will that affect my PPP? As of right now, no one can really answer that question because we're trying to get an answer from Washington of what was put in the act as it relates to that specific question. And so you need to give us at least another day or so that question can come out of Washington so we can really understand how to apply that, because there are certain rules, if you know anything about it, and it's on the website about the PPP, the 8-week rule, because it's really to take you to 2 months of your payroll. But there's a qualifier in that of when your employees, before the COVID virus happened as of February 1st until today. And right. Certain people are now falling in between that, and there's no real decisive answer yet on that. And we've asked for guidance and clarity for that, Garrett, as of yesterday.
Okay. One other quick question, and we'll start to wrap things up. If a business has a line of credit with a bank, does that make them ineligible to apply for the EIDL?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. You should, if there's a takeaway from this call, every business on this call should apply for the EIDL, and everyone on this call should check the box asking for the $10,000 advancement.
Great. And just to clarify again, the payroll protection program, the applications are not out yet. I know everyone wants to get in on that.
Yeah,
Joe was saying a few days here.
Yeah, when we got the bill over the weekend, and they said, we said as a SBA, they said give us the midweek. I know I have a webinar later today, possibly to discuss it. We know we have a call tomorrow morning to discuss PPP. So okay. I don't think there's anything out right now.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, and I should mention too, I'm talking with Wells Fargo in a little while, so we'll wait till we hear official word on what they're doing. But if they are not participating, we'll let you know that. But we'll wait to hear officially from the bank. Scott, any kind of final thoughts you want to leave us with? I know we just put out a lot of information there.
Yeah, no, I think listening to Joe and similar to the conversations I'm having down in DC with our National Restaurant Association, trying to have a better understanding of what is the best for a restaurant. I think a lot of our restaurants, to Joe's point, when we were asked to shut down on-premise dining, and the PPP loan kind of initially, as you read the 888-page, bill, has a lot of open-ended questions and how it's going to impact our industry. And obviously we're trying to get as much guidance for our industry specifically. And I know, as I would say to Christina and being on our board, we're trying to provide those because obviously restaurants are unique. They weren't really able to telecommute or have anybody kind of work from home. So how are you asking people to bring people back, but you maybe are fully closed, or you're doing a little bit of takeout, but how that program could even fit. So to Joe's point, I think there's still a lot of questions to be asked. I would go back to, I think David made a comment before we left, making sure you're having some conversations with your accountants and your banks, if you haven't already, with your mortgage and your lease, or those conversations as well. But start that process, and I know it's going to go fast and furious here once a lot of this information is going to come out, as Joe said, from SBA here over the next 24 to 48 hours on that loan compared to the EIDL. But I do think, to Joe's point, the EIDL grant process, the loan for the EIDL and as well as the grant process, you should apply. You can always, not accept it or pay it right back. I don't believe, and Joe, maybe you can answer, I don't think there's any penalties if you were getting it and you wanted to pay it right back and say, hey, I'm not taking all of this, I'm only going to take a portion. It seems like there's not any penalties, so at least there's no penalty in applying. So you should apply and get into the system and then make your decision as these other things start to come out.
You're right. There is no penalty. There is no prepayment penalty for any of the loan programs that are coming out through any of the stimulus.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Christina, you want to leave us with a final thought? You're right on the front lines of this. You're dealing with this. I'm sure you're learning as you sit there today as well.
Yeah, I didn't want to learn this much in this short amount of time.
So,
I wish that, I do hope that, the community continues to come together. All of these outreaches, Joe, Scott, Garrett, everyone, staying connected and knowing what's going on, doing these calls. Final thought is let's just, try and keep our heads together and stay positive and work on businesses to come back to.
Great, thank you. I want to thank all of our panel. I know we answered all the questions that were up there today, but I know there's a lot more out there. We probably didn't spend enough time on some of the retailers. A lot of these situations apply across the board to all businesses. I did receive a question about hotels, how someone gets involved with the program to host first responders, hospital employees, and such. And so you can reach out to Rex, to Ginny Kozlowski. Anyone who wants to email me, I'll get you her contact information. Ginny is with the Connecticut Lodging Association, and I know they're working really closely on those issues. So once again, thank you to everyone who joined us. Thank you to our panel. Again, with the Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce, Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, we'll be posting all of these updates onto our website. We'll have this recording of this webinar as well, and we'll continue to host these webinars over the next several days and weeks. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Garrett.
Thanks, Garrett.
Thank you.